Sorry?
So guys, my name is David Usten, I will be the session chair. The speaker of the papers, please come here and upload your presentation. Just do it now and then we are going to go to the process. I don't have time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what we'll do is go ahead and prepare. We can do very good eye. That's the camera. It's expecting a big thing. Sorry?
You need to give the mic as well, right? You need the mic as well.
Either that or we'll have any questions ourselves or I think it's no, it's not. Yes.
No,
Actually, it makes no sense because we also don't have speakers apparently. So microphone. We just noticed that.
Sorry guys for this 5-minute break.
Are you sure about to do it now? No, but shouldn't you wait until it actually makes sense to show this impactfully?
we can.
Yeah.
Let's
I discussed
think
with them
about
already about we will do it. And then when we have eyes on, so we push things on, we have 50,000, we do 100,000. Makes sense to throw it out there.
Gotcha.
And then do this online on the side and all that stuff.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Otherwise, we'll be launching this for nobody.
Gotcha.
Well, not nobody, but you know.
Yeah.
We need to go. This is-
sorry guys for the short delay.
Say something on the chat with me.
We're going to start our session. The session is named Cybersecurity. And the first speaker will be Shile Nakule. Sorry for your my pronunciation.
You're trying.
I'm trying, huh?
Yeah.
And the paper name is Factors Influencing the Success of Database Forensic Investigation Organizations. So please, the floor is yours.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. My name is Icecet2023. I'm a master's student at the University of Cape Town, Information Systems. This is a paper I wrote with my colleagues on the factors that influence the success of database investigation in organizations. Basically, database forensic investigations, abbreviated just DPFI, is an area of digital forensics which specifically looked at examining the contents of databases and the metadata. As you know, digital forensics is huge. It covers mobile forensics, network forensics, computer forensics, etc. But there is a few research or aspect that is paid into looking at database, whereas most of the data resides in databases. And it is a multi-dimensional nature in its nature. And what we look at are the factors that influence its success. As we were looking, we look at digital data privacy, the database management systems, database forensic models, and the lack of knowledge. As we did the analysis, we looked at the theoretical model that we could apply, which included a conceptual model, which is an operational data platform to be explained later, and a theory called Dumpster-Shafter theory, which was proposed. Just to go a bit on the analysis, we found that 80% of the respondents stated that there was a negative influence of data privacy, which resulted in hindrance and provocation of data. 60% were worried about the knowledge that it was inconsistent, and applying the principles was not clear. But as we went along, it was concluded that a positive factor was automating this area of digital forensics, which is DPFI, which helped in consolidating. All right, okay. I'll raise my voice and simplifying the models. So we looked at, as I stated, our problem statement was looking at how organizations can improve on these factors and automate. And the research significance was that if we were to remove these repeated unwanted investigation steps, as when you carry out digital forensics, there are a number of steps that you go through, then it will contribute to remove the delays that are affecting this field of study. And then we look at the fact that if the models that are applied in digital forensics, specifically the DPFI ones, were to be also integrated, then it would accomplish the reuse of this field. Finally, the last aim was to ensure that organizations have knowledgeable practitioners. There is a huge scarcity of practitioners that are able to understand what DPFI is about. Most of them tend to use push forensics by use of several tools such as MK, FTK, and so on, just to do the bare minimum. Whereas if you look at the area of DPFI, it requires certain skills, knowledge in understanding the different models, knowledge in database management systems, in order for you to have a proper and successful investigation of a matter that may arise in an organization due to maybe a cyber attack or some fraud-related matters in organizations. Of course, there are such questions where we're looking at how these forensic investigations is impacting the advances on automation, and also these factors as well, which we have already alluded to. So as we were carrying out this investigation, this research, we looked at how we can use an automated process of DPFI by combining the task combination tool. What this rule says is you look at a number of sources of data, and then you apply what they call it PBAs, which is probable assumptions, and then from them, which is this part, so you've got the number of the different sources, you bring them together to create some probabilities to say, what is the probability that the attack came from system A, system B, system C? And then you then look at all of these possible probabilities, and then you apply these certain rules. So the rules help you to then make a decision, because in a database you may not exactly know what happened. So in other words, you create some different constructs to say it could have been this system or this system, and together with them then you make the decision logic, which then can be fused into information. So what we're doing in this model was to say, applying the task combination rule, what would it be if we now use the operational data platform, which I've explained here? So it will mean that the information will relate to the data sources. So you don't know which databases have been affected, and then you say, these are my data sources. And then in terms of DPFI processes now, that will be your collection of the data. So you've got the evidence, we are first collecting it. And then now what we have the PPAs, which will mean we are now ready to ingest the data. So we've got the multiple sources of the databases where it could have happened, the cyber attack could have happened. Then you model it. You can use any of like SSIS if it's to be modeled into one data, operational data store. And then once you model the data in here, you can then apply, say, SSAS, whereby now you create a model of the data. That will be tying up in the other slides. You see a common data model, which now helps further down when you create, say, a data warehouse. That will be your decision making. To say, okay, now that you've modeled all the data together, and it is now in one source, then you can apply DPFI doing analysis and reporting on the data, which is at this level. So organizations are actually struggling with database forensic investigations because of these partial data sources that are coming through, and they don't know exactly where they can start making decisions and bringing it into one source of truth, which could be modeled, and then you have one decision logic whereby then you can extract. It can be used in many industries. For example, if you look at how can we know that the cost of making a call at night is still the same cost during the day. At night, people are asleep, MTN or Vodacom or any of the service providers can decide to increase the cost, but at 6 a.m. they can decide to go back to the normal cost. So now, if, for example, the Competitions Commission of South, which looks after the ensuring that companies abide by the standards, can have a system whereby if the cost of the cell phone use or making a call increases, they can proactively see that in an analytic layer where the dashboard starts showing up that the cost has now risen to above the regulated minimum of the amount that should be there. And then when it drops in the morning at 6 a.m. when they decide to change, then it can also show in the dashboard. So all of this, if you've got connection and all your data sources are pushed, then only then you can model it and have one source of truth, and then be able to do analysis. So the perspective of our study was that we needed to see how from the practitioner's point of view, whereby you apply this theory, making decisions where these can be the different KPIs that you want to measure at the top. If you want to measure the cost of the making a call, how it was, then we are able at this top to know that it's supposed to be 60 cents when it appears to be now 70 cents, then it becomes I'm short of time, but basically then we carried out the whole exercise where we had respondents coming through. We're able to analyze and get information of the issues. As you see, this model was actually applying that framework to say if you've got the data, this is how it gets processed, these are the logic fusions that you can come up with, and then you get your results at the end. So we're analyzing now one by one of the problems, database forensic models. We analyze the different models, how it affects some participants. You can see we're saying that when you access the data, you find that they're encrypted in the language that you cannot use, and then it becomes a problem when you start working on the data because there are overlaps. But all in all, how we got to the end was to analyze the facts that are affecting this use of the BFI, and then we came to a conclusion that if we were to automate the whole process using that framework that I've already defined, then it can help the practitioner to get to use this easily. Automating, as one of the respondents says, was core to the data governance capabilities within the data pipelines, and then it was helping in the knowledge. In conclusion, we concluded that there was a multiple data repositories that are existing in companies, hence BFI is affected. Digital privacy was also found as one of the issues because some practitioners can't access certain data because of privacy matters. We also find that the lack of knowledge by practitioners was a problem because most practitioners don't know what they are doing because of push forensics and lack of knowledge, basically, and understanding this field. I think I'm left for a minute. I don't know for a question.
I have time for one short question. I will have a question.
Yes.
Your method, your tool can be used in all kinds of databases. I mean, in SQL database, non-SQL database, graph database, or you have?
Yes. If you pull the data from different sources, say Oracle, SQL, whatever, then when you do your integration here, the transformation of the data, so there are many engines that can be applied here. You can decide on the operational data store to say your unique database will be SQL, or you can go Oracle. Then you apply whatever engine that is integrating the data into one data source. So you can apply to any. So from a regulator point of view, you can send some APIs that will fetch the different data sources and then bring it into one, and then a video dashboard at the top whereby you can view your dashboards to look at any incompliances that are happening here. But here, this model applies, it looks at Microsoft, where we've got the data sources, SSIS here, we've got the data store storing the data, SSIS to build the cubes of the different data, and then are able to pull it in for analytics purposes. So it can be applied to them.
I have a quick question as well, please.
Quick question, conscious of time. I've been a forensics practitioner as well from a cyber perspective. My question is, you actually need to create operations towards the data before they go into the databases, so you need to add some new method to the process, to the flow of the data before they go into the database, or it's just the same data that's there? Because you were talking before about like encryption issues and problems actually reading things, so
Yeah.
how do you deal with that?
Okay, all right. First, this looks at an organization. So it means cooperation is within the functions of, let's say, IT are there.
Sure.
So if you need to create or to get any of the keys, it's available because this is an organization.
Right, so this goes into a system.
It goes to a system.
Right, so it changes the process.
You mean the forensic process?
It changes the process in order to do forensics. So your operational process needs to be modified so you can do forensics in the future.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes,
got it.
that's correct. Yes.
Thank you.
That's yeah.
Thank you. All right, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. presenter, I hope that I will pronounce the name correctly, Tapiwa Gundu, not here. There's two papers, Tapiwa Gundu. Okay, that means that we are going to move forward. Daniel Shadour, the paper name. Do you have an USB? Yes. Okay. Do you need any help? Yes, Shadour?
Thank you. Morning, everyone. My name is Daniel Shadour, and I will be presenting the decentralized identity and the Verbal Credential Tracking and Management System. This paper was written by the team members, as you know. In the interest of time, I'm not going to introduce all of them, but the contents of the paper that we look is, or what I'll be presenting is the introduction, the background and literature review, the research objectives, methodology, proposed system, results, the conclusion and future work, acknowledge some of the references and papers that we used to write the presentation, and an acknowledgement on people who made this paper possible. So the first item I'll be speaking on is the introduction, and the introduction broken down is I'll be discussing the digital identity landscape, the challenges with the current implementation of digital identity, the drawbacks of traditional identity and access management systems, and then I'll speak on self-sovereign identity, proposals for decentralized digital identity system, and then the main contributions of this paper. Digital identity defined is a unique representation of a subject engaged in an online transaction that encompasses the unique attributes, credentials, and personal information that distinguishes them in the digital realm. So in essence, what digital identity is, you can see it as any an organization or a big organization. When employee or a member of the organization gets given a Microsoft 365 profile, that profile counts as the digital identity under the organization. Or if we look at a personal capacity of digital identity, we can see it as you using your Facebook or Google profile to sign on to different platforms. That being a single sign-on using those platforms instead of punching in a combination of your username and password. So that is, in essence, a quick short description of what digital identity is. And what are some of the challenges with using such an implementation of digital identity? So with the examples I mentioned, it is a more central or a centralized system where Google owns the information and holds it in their databases. So that being centralized, the challenges for the centralized system is that centralized digital identity systems have been used over the years until rapid digitization was accelerated by the impact of COVID-19. Which underscores the significance of digital identity in representing individuals and entities online. Centralized identity systems lack the user-centric approach needed to increase trust and ensure security. So essentially, or in essence, since the COVID pandemic, there has been a need for more remote work, and with that comes the presence of a person needing to present themselves on the digital realm. So instead of attending conferences during the pandemic, you need to present yourself online using these 365 accounts or your Google account. But some of the challenges that we've noticed with that is privacy concerns. So during the COVID pandemic, companies like Facebook went under trial in the United States for some of the privacy policies that they implemented, that being them holding personal information of users and sharing it for profit without the consent of the user. Some other issues that have been identified is security vulnerabilities and lack of user controls over personal data. As mentioned, they were distributed the information without the consent of the user. Vulnerable to single points of failure and can be easily compromised due to the isolation from other systems. Limited long-term persistence and historical audits, and employing manual verification process and hinders the adoption of associated digital services due to the cumbersome use of password managers and two-factor authentication. So we will move on to the next slide just to maintain the momentum we're keeping with the presentation. So the next presentation will speak on the drawbacks of traditional identity and access management systems. So with that, traditional access management systems are designed for on-premise workspaces, and they struggle to adapt to modern digital landscapes. The reliance on manual provisioning and periodic password resets and complex access control configurations result in resource consumption and security risks. So this just emphasizes the point on having a single point where your information is managed. And that single point can be compromised, meaning that your user information is at the hands of another person. So what is the proposed solution for these systems? The proposed solution is using self-sovereign identity. So why was self-sovereign identity identified as a solution to this? So we are proposing to empower the end user with control over the information they use to prove their identities. A decentralized model that manages digital identity by enhancing privacy, security, and ensuring that users only share relevant information that they hold. So in essence, using self-sovereign identity and a decentralized technology to support the points mentioned here, the advantage of using this approach is if you look at the shortfalls of centralized identity or the current implementation, as I mentioned, the information that is stored is controlled by the organization that holds the service or infrastructure that holds the information. But with this model, now that is shifted to a decentralized system that is not owned by any organization, holding that information to remove that element of dictatorship over what happens to the information. And the ideal use of this system is that the user is the one in control of what kind of information is being shared and held within the system. If you look at some of the research that was done on the implementation of the system, we investigated the current state of digital identity management systems. We analyzed the significance of digital decentralized identities. We evaluated the existence of centralized solutions. We proposed a secure and reliable decentralized digital identity system. We ensured authenticity and integrity of user credentials, enabled selective sharing of verifiable credentials, adopted the W3C standards, DIP, verifiable credentials, and DLT technologies to implement the proposal of this system. We compared system performances with competitors that already did the research on the implementation of such a system. And then we also did the research on the efficiency and interoperability of the system, and we provided recommendations for implementing the solution. So if we look at the methodology, this might give more context on how the system or the proposed system is implemented. So with the literature review, what we did was we identified digital identity concepts, decentralized identity solutions, credentialing mechanisms, and identity gaps that are found within these solutions that were identified as existing in the current landscape. And some of the identified technologies and standards that were used to implement this system was the W3C, which is the worldwide consortium model of decentralized systems. The decentralized identifiers, which are DIDs or DID docs, verifiable credentials, distributed ledger technology to host all of these technologies that were mentioned. So the system design also outlines the implementation of the above mentioned technologies that are used to implement the solution. And then for the implementation, there were use cases that were identified and developed to implement the proposed system of decentralized and credentialing solution. Performance evaluation, so the performance evaluation, as mentioned earlier, was just evaluation of currently implemented technologies versus what our technology can do. And we did a result and analysis of the performance that was done using the benchmark of other implemented technologies. So if we look at the conceptual overview of the system that's proposed, we have three roles within the system. So we have issuers, owners, and verifiers. So issuers are people who issue a digital identity to the owner, or also known as the holder of the digital identity. And when they issue, the identity goes to the owner, and the owner can do information, essentially select what kind of information can be presented to a verifier. So if a verifier will receive information that is only disclosed by the user of the system. That is just a gist of the system with the interest of time. So this diagram that you see here is just an overview of how a user will be enrolled within the system and how they get authenticated within the system. So at the beginning of the enrollment process, the user gets issued a decentralized identification document. That decentralized identification document gets stored on a decentralized app, and then that app just stores that information on a decentralized ledger. So for authentication, that document that was stored will be referenced, and an authentication key will be given to the user. So this is just a snippet of how the system was implemented. So single sign-on point where the user doesn't use password or credentials. They can use something like MetaMask or their email to log into the system. The credentials or decentralized identities are present to the IDs. And on the last part, you can see a proof that was generated by a user, and that proof is a resident card. So if the situation happens that someone wants to prove that you're a citizen of the country, you just present a card instead of an identification document that has irrelevant information to the person verifying the information. And this is just an analysis of what the system can do compared to what is currently out there in the market. And if you look at the measured performance versus what's out there, we notice that our system is highly scalable and it is efficient. And just to conclude, the paper proposes a robust, decentralized digital identity system, ensuring credential authenticity, integrity, and leveraging the standards that we mentioned earlier. And for future work, what we are planning on doing is interfacing it with credential transparency description language, introducing governance frameworks, defining more roles and rule definitions of the roles that we propose, and yeah, that is it. So the last slide will just be an acknowledgement to the CSR for funding the research and assisting us with publishing the paper. And any questions?
Okay, thank you, Daniel. Any questions, remarks? I will have a question.
Okay.
You mentioned during your presentation that through your system, through your idea,
Yes.
you provide service in which you allow the users to share only the requested information, or only the let's say necessary information.
Yes.
How do you do that?
So
how do you, are you sure that the user is not sharing more?
So when a credential is created, that credential is created with the DID that I mentioned. So it's appended to a DID and it's stored on the blockchain. That credential has a signature coming from the issuer. So if we put it in a government perspective, let's say a transport authority that gives you a driver's license. If they say this is your identity, it's a driver's license, they have their signature appended to that driver's license. So whatever necessary information is on that driver's license, you hold it. From that, you take only the necessary information from that driver's license that's on the DLT. Let's say you want to take your driving code. So what can you drive? What kind of vehicle can you drive? You just take that and you create a verifiable credential. So when that verifiable credential is created, the signature that comes with the decentralized identity gets appended to the verifiable credential. So then if you present it to a verifier, you say, there's the signature coming from the authority, this can be verified, tracing it back to the DLT. Because the good thing about using DLTs is you have a historical view of how was that thing created and who created it. So the DID of the issuing authority will be public as well. To say that if you see this DID, then you're sure that it comes from the necessary authority that needs to issue it. So it's just a matter of the user taking what is there and creating a verifiable credential from an existing decentralized identity. So to say. I'm not sure if it's making sense.
Yeah, thank you. It does make sense.
I have a question. First of all, really nice presentation.
Thank you.
I want to ask, So two questions actually. On the DLT side, the data that goes in, so through the layer 3 app into the DLT, the data would be stored where? In a private chain? How is it protected?
So it depends on the blockchain that's used. If you use something like Ledger, you can create your own private network.
Yeah.
But with a more public
Like a
ledger,
IPFS or-
what you can do is encrypt the information.
Yeah,
Doesn't
put it in
necessarily-
IPFS
yes.
or something.
So that's why the use of the verifiable credential will come in handy, because if the information is encrypted, for verifiers to access that information, you as the user can then say, okay, what information do you need? You just need my driving code. Then you say, okay, let's take my driving code from the encrypted identity
Yeah.
and create a verifiable credential. So the verifiable credential can be what is publicly accessible, because you choose as the user to show that information, other than everything about your hair color, your height, or whatever being seen on a public
Yeah.
ledger.
Yeah.
So that is the
Actually, that answers the previous question. Okay, cool. So the other question I had is,
short one.
very short.
There's another one.
Sure. Okay, this is short but important. You mentioned Google keeps your identity. It's true, they keep your information,
Yes.
Meta, and so on.
Yes.
So this is about, what you showed is about validation, not authentication. So how do you think this can actually push them out of that, because they're so embedded?
So the whole idea of ensuring that Facebook or Meta, as you said, or Microsoft or all these big organizations don't have a monopoly on identity is using frameworks or schemas that are publicly acceptable by everyone, and using decentralized technologies. So that way they cannot own a network or a ledger, because it is different nodes that share the information instead of one node that stores monopolizes that information. So just a combination of using open source information or open source worldwide accepted schemas to implement the technology. So yeah.
Can you go to slide number 30?
Slide number 30. Oh, sorry. Yes.
No, right there.
So that's one.
There. There.
This one? This one?
Yes.
Oh.
No. The one before. That one.
Oh. Yes. Yes.
Considering that it's a password system, if I have access to your email, if I have your email, how far can I go in accessing what only you are supposed to access?
With the current implementation, we used a passwordless authentication provider just to make the user experience easier. So security always lies within the user. Of course, with cybersecurity, we know that when it comes to security, you must train the user to be cyber secure, so that there is no breaches with the account or information. So, of course, as much as you can say, what happens if the email is compromised? What happens if your clean ID book is compromised and someone just takes it and takes a picture and puts their picture? It's the same question. The security of it relies on you to ensure that you practice good cyber security and change your password. Often ensure that your password is not sitting somewhere where it's readable. But other ways to implement this would be to use MetaMask. So again, with MetaMask, you still need to punch in an email to use your digital wallet. Same with something like Reddit. With Reddit, the digital wallet needs a password. So even if you go across the board to say, what about other ways to implement a digital wallet, they all say you can use a a password, a PIN code, or I forgot what they call it. There's a long phrase like a
Mnemonics.
Yes, thank you. They use mnemonics to basically authenticate you. So it all lies within the user to practice good cybersecurity to protect the information.
Okay, can I help?
Thank you.
We can have this discussion in the coffee break. The next paper towards building confidence destruction will be presented by Samit and Dave. So guys, the floor is yours.
Thank
Please
you.
try to stay in the 10 minutes. Okay? Please try.
Yes. All right, then. Hello, everybody. My name is Adit Karwal. This is Sumit Chauhan. It's a pleasure to be in Icecet here under IEEE. Thanks so much for your time and for coming. So, just introducing very quickly our paper towards building quantum-resistant blockchain. I wanted first to acknowledge the work of our colleagues and partners, Dr. Shantya Yaramadyan, of the Department of Mathematics and Statistics of Mississippi State University, and likewise also Mr. Bhagwan Boja for supporting us and co-writing this paper with us. And I'll pass the word.
Yeah, it's glad to be here, guys. And I believe what we are presenting here is going to be a very different thing. We talk about too many things, and what matters is everything makes a value when it's secure. This paper is actually into the same direction. And we are not presenting research here, we are presenting a solution here. It is as big as what we call Y2K at once. So when that appears, we know that this is going to happen, and this is definitely need a lot of attention. So we need the community to look into the direction and we solve this. This is actually a similar step forward. So we know that we are actually heading into a direction where quantum computing is making a huge big wins, but at the same time it is also opening up a lot of things that require a lot of work and a lot of thinking around how we will solve this if it appears to our systems. The problem statement that we are talking about in this paper is specific to blockchain. We are saying because this is one of the best implementation today for the cryptography. It is one of the things which includes 3 different pillars. That includes your hashing, that includes your signatures, right? That includes your encryptions and decryptions. So when we look into this specific things where we are opting it across the world to come out of Web 2.2 and moving into the Web 3.0 or a hybrid system, we are relying on a technology that is known as blockchain. So over here, what if we say that this can be compromised? And that's where this makes it very important to look into the direction how we can solve it. Not only this, the problem statement brings more bigger situation when we can say that anything that is based upon RSA, right? Anything that is based upon RSA for encryption and decryption is also opening the same thread. What that means? That means the concept that we have developed, public and private keys, where public key is to exchange and the private key is to actually ensure the security, both can be compromised. And that's what this paper is, the paper talks about. We actually highlighted 2 specific things in this paper. One is Short's algorithm, another is Groovy's algorithm. This is specifically the areas where the lot of things, lot of research already happened. And one of the best things that we can say that the first Short's algorithm was introduced in 90s. What it means that the study was already there. The computation was not there. But bringing the quantum into the world is actually bringing that half piece missing. What that means that anything that is based upon primary number computation, that's what RSA does. It combines 2 primary keys to find the 3rd unique primary key. And as big the primary keys are, as secure you feel. talk about email encryption, chatting systems, talk about SSLs. They all are opted in the same fashion. So what we are discussing over here, though our scope is limited, but this goes beyond the scope that is presented in this paper, starting from email securities till SSLs, starting from the system where you put two credentials, where whether you are using MetaMask or whether you are using any other wallet, everybody opt the same methodology to make it secure that way. The chain that we presented, so a specific thing that we have actually talked about this, we covered the threat of quantum computing, that actually joined the missing piece of the puzzle. Then we have also talked about the Grovy's algorithm over here. We also talked about Short's algorithm there. That is the one that is highlighted for breaking up the public RSAs and everything. Going beyond this, I would like to talk about this. This is a specific section where we need that kind of attention towards it, because that includes why people feel secure, what is the primary computation under the RSAs. And we talk about these two primary things. We highlighted ECDSA, that we all know that the blockchain actually use it. It's a elliptic curve methodology for feeling secure. And then there is ECDH, that is also associated. Specific to the paper, we actually keep focused towards talking about these two times, because these two things actually leads toward the pointers where we need the post-quantum cryptography to bring into the picture. What that means? That means that there are three different specific areas where we are putting the research. The bigger one is the latest. If you go beyond go under the details, you will find there are three different techniques highlighted, and then we favor the one that is latest cryptography. Of course, there are specifically these sections are under a kind of a threat currently, where we believe that we need quite good attention towards and to ensure it. Like if we go with the system today, when we work with the chaining system over in our company in Norris protocol, we saw that there are specifically different companies are doing it in a different way. And yes, the performance is the area of observation. Whether we feel like the number of keys that is generated, because we know that 256-bit rising from 128-bit is itself something that requires a lot of attention to look into the right solution. So when we start into that direction, we saw the LockChain were doing something, and LockChain is also based upon Hyperledger. So they are doing some work in the same direction. We know the Ethereum is already considering it, and so do we. So we also have the solution that we are having here in this paper is coming from the real world solution that we are opting to make sure that blockchain are secure and produces their keys in a way that it cannot be easily attacked by the quantum methodologies. The most important, one more last important thing I would like to talk about on the chaining side. When we look into the implementation of this solution, what we found that chain has its own way to design this, but then there are other solutions as well that we can opt around the chain. One of the problem that Web3 world is dealing with is that it is based upon Web 2.0 solutions. What that brings it is an inbuilt threat to the bigger system. So when we talk about the Web 2.0, there are ways that it can be compromised, because Web 3.0 is based upon top of it, then it will be in the same direction. All right, over to you, David.
So very quickly here and for context, and thanks so much to Sumit for that eloquent presentation. I'm just going to show you guys a 1-minute video. We keep it the time.
Yeah.
So our context in knowledge protocol, and that's really where we're applying this. It's the context of applying this to a decentralized ledger that leverages the existing centralization of the world already to make it decentralized. In other words, pretty much all systems are decentralized, but we're using them centrally. So what we're doing is we're applying our protocol, our blockchain, our decentralized command and control system and consensus into existing devices, making them nodes, so that they can validate each other. So as mentioned before, the point of failure principle pretty much disappears, and the more complexity you have, the more resilient you become. So this principle was actually brought forward to us from an interest from defense organizations all the way to nation states and critical infrastructure environments. So when one device is actually deemed to be compromised with an untrusted state based on, in this case, quantum resistant integrity validations that are obviously forward-looking and future focused, all the other devices will actually agree under consensus that that's a problem. And for the attackers to actually take over a centralized device, normally you just have to attack that device and take over potentially the whole network, because every device in the world is a point of failure to the network it connects to. But under this principle, all devices pretty much form what we would call sort of like a hive mind of trust and security, where you, the attacker, the subversive actor, would have to take over the whole infrastructure under a distributed principle on the cloud and different networks, etc., to actually take over a single device, okay? And applying, as Sumit said, quantum resistant technology to this, well, first of all, it extends an already extremely resilient cryptographic environment that is distributed, in this case, or decentralized in case of blockchain principles. But it also can be applied to AI systems, knowledge systems, APIs, zero trust, etc. And that's really our focus with this research. So thank you so much, guys, and open to questions.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Can you go back to the table?
Yeah.
Number one, I'm wondering why public key is only being used to see
Say it again.
your public key. Why is it only being used for signature purposes, not encryption?
It is useful for both.
Both, yeah.
The impact there is saying it's not secure. Do you mind explaining on that?
Yes. So it doesn't matter if you're talking about hashing functions or cryptographic keys. In the end, if you look at the size of the keys, you will see that there is a big risk as quantum computation comes forward in the next, say, half a decade, that potentially all these will be instantly broken. And that's really our point here.
And that specifically defines the ECDSA methodology that is applied on respect to that. But if you go into the detail of the paper, you will find both the aspects.
Yeah, happy to talk more offline
Yeah.
about this. Any other questions?
Any other question from the room? If not, I have a question. Well, there are two questions. How much does it cost now to build your own quantum computer?
Oh, that's a good question.
10, 20 million? Something like that?
More than that.
It's probably more than that, yeah.
More than that.
I would say it's probably more than that.
Yeah.
The techniques that we're using right now, they can be used with quantum chips, but they don't have to. So they are techniques that the current real world can use to fight the looming threat that's coming, regardless of how you want to look at that, to mitigate risk into the future. So it's something that should be transversally applied to everything that matters to society, not just the environments that we work on that are critical infrastructure or defense, but in general, banking, healthcare, government, so on. Right?
The second question is, should we be afraid about quantum computing regarding the NSA, ECC, and so on? Or should we still be, I don't know, sleep really well and at least then
Well,
That's an interesting question.
talking from I would like to answer, but talking from from a cybersecurity best practice perspective, you should always aim to prevent instead of remediate.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's stupid to waste so much money, like 1 million euros for cybersecurity method.
Oh.
When I want to protect my, I don't know, my.
This is the beauty of this sort of implementation. You don't need to spend that money. You can if you want, but you don't need to. What you should do is actually be prepared, because if there's a situation where there's a potential systematic catastrophic breach that creates a cascading event that leads to everything being open, then you cannot recover from that. And the reputational damage, the damage to institutions, and the damage to anything that's supposed to be secret and it's not anymore. So from a power perspective or balance, so on and so forth, from a geopolitics perspective, cybercrime, cyber espionage, cyber war is incalculable. So nation states, companies, highly critical environments should think about this in order to prevent things that would be impossible to manage. It's just kind of like an obvious principle. Yeah.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Other questions? Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
I'd like to invite the next speaker, Christina Mugal. Am I pronounced correctly?
Yes.
Machine learning-based security analytics in South Africa, small medium enterprise, review and classification. Please, Christina, the floor is yours.
I don't know if it's working. Okay.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Christina Mugal, and I'll be presenting on the machine learning-based security analytics in South Africa. In South African SMAs, so just be a review and classification of data. I'll be
Sorry.
focusing. Yes.
Must speak louder.
Oh, yes. Okay. Firstly, on the content, that's fine. I'll be focusing on the introduction, the research objective, research procedure, as well as the literature review and discussion analysis, as well as the conclusion and future work, and as well as just reference and acknowledgements. In the recent decades, the number of inherent users have grown rapidly, leading to increase in the number of cyber criminal activities, as well as which results into the research of communities that's presented many cybersecurity studies to predict and as well as prevent these activities from occurring. Based on our research, yes, as I was saying, I'll be focusing on the introduction, research objectives, and research, the research procedure that was undertaken using the research of the paper, as well as the research review, discussion and analysis, and also the conclusion and future work and the reference and acknowledgements. As I mentioned, in recent decades, the number of internet users has grown rapidly, leading to increase in the number of cybercrime activities. As a result, the research committee has presented many cybersecurity studies to prevent as well as to prevent and predict these activities among the organization that is being carried. So organization, especially the small and medium enterprises, handle cybersecurity based on various factors. Some faces the challenge of lack of resources and to implement the cybersecurity anti-threat measures. In some of the challenges that we actually found during the research, we found that they also have budget restriction as well as lack of awareness of cybersecurity among employees, as well as cross-sectoral cyber risks, and among those as well as absence of cybersecurity practices at the organizational level. Especially in the South African context, significant effort has been made to establish cybersecurity guidelines through the South African National Cybersecurity Policy Framework. However, in this framework, they actually outline only the guidelines in terms that all the businesses should actually to promote cybersecurity measures, but not necessarily giving out the guidelines in terms of how to then prevent those cybersecurity threat measures. Also, in the South African law, in 2021, the Cybersecurity Act of 2020, which geared towards the government of cybersecurity and the corresponding penalties for the breaches of the Act. Furthermore, it also lacks the implementation details, as I mentioned, perhaps for these organizations such as the SMME that can leverage and use those to counter the cyber threat. Therefore, it is very important, in addition to the government measures, modern cybersecurity challenges in SME must have matching strategy to counter cyber threats, as well as that are both known and as well as unknown. Because cybersecurity practices and techniques must be adapted to real threats and abilities rather than copying government practices to comply with legislation. Based on this, we structured the paper in terms of 2 research papers. So the first research question will be based on how do SMEs in South Africa implement cybersecurity analytics. This question actually aims to investigate the implementation and practices of cyber analytics within South Africa, aiming to understand the current strategies as well as our potential gaps. The second research question is based on on which machine learning techniques are suitable for cybersecurity analytics SMEs within South Africa. So basically, this question aims to determine the cybersecurity application, the suitable application for machine learning techniques in cybersecurity that are both effective and tailored to the unique needs and constraints in South Africa. So for our research, as I mentioned, we had a research procedure whereby we used the preferred reporting items for systematic reviews and meta-analysis to actually conduct a systematic literature review to achieve the primary goal, which is in this case was to provide classification of cybersecurity analysis using machine learning techniques. Basically, what we used, how we identified first, we had to identify the papers that we would like to research. Based on our case, our papers input or in initial format input on research engine. For instance, we used the Google Scholar. We used terms such as classification for cybersecurity machine learning in South Africa, as well as cybersecurity machine learning techniques, as well as security analytics using machine learning and many more. And based on that, we were able to find 34 papers that were talking about cybersecurity. And then based on that, we then did records to actually find applications that we can then remove. And based on that, we ended with screened 34 papers. And from those 34 papers, we had records. We included 17 that were relevant, and then also we had excluded one paper that was actually old. And then on the classification or eligibility of these papers were full text articles assessed for eligibility. First of all, we assessed if the data is not pertaining to the review. If not, we only remove 3 papers. and then if the paper lack of any details, adequate evaluation is also removed, and outcomes that were not relevant as well. But however, based on this, while we were conducting the research, we found out that there's actually a lack of articles in South Africa that actually focuses on the cybersecurity for SMME, and then we also then from there included as well as other countries as well that have implemented cybersecurity analytics methods or techniques on within SMMEs that uses machine learning as well. So just to clarify on the criteria, we then had based on the inclusion as well as excluding. So based on the time, I won't really go much into it, but this is the criteria that we actually utilized. I'll try to be quick. So based on that, we actually researched on 3 primary literature, which is the cybersecurity literature, the methods of cybersecurity analysis for network trafficking analysis, as well as the literature on the SMME in South Africa. So basically wanted to highlight research gaps as well as research problems that this paper actually highlighted. Based on the research that we actually found, according to panel and other researchers, they were notable that in 2017 there were a lot of 61% of SMMEs encountered malware-related cyber attacks, and also a report from Phenomenal Institute also highlighted in 2018 there's 67% of SMMEs that faced cyber attacks, as well as 58% suffered a data breach, while Recent Group also reported that a staggering of 71% of ransomware attacks specifically targeted SMME. And this only does not only, it also includes the South African SMME as well, which also includes the malware, denial of service, phishing, intrusion, as well as email spam. And then also within this, while the growth of cyber attacks is actually growing, there are also many SMMEs that actually do not prioritize and invest within the cybersecurity due to limited budgets. And we saw that there's a noticeable gap in that needs to have a specialized cybersecurity information talent for SMMEs that can be able to address the issues that were specified. And then also within that, in the cybersecurity, where there are also different tools that are being used within the cybersecurity analytics. Just to, with the purpose of time, I'll try to move quick. We've noticed that there are different security analytics tools that have been detected that are used to detect and sometimes respond to cybersecurity incidents, tools such as system information and environment management, and as well as intrusion detection systems, which also the intrusion detection system is can be divided into 2, which is the network-based as well as the host-based intrusion detection system. And such as these tools, however, some of these tools, based tools, are being proposed to achieve intelligent and robust security solution against cyber attacks for SMEs. And this was one of the motivations that we actually did the paper. So just to give an overview on some of the cybersecurity analytics using machine learning that we found, most of them were actually based from countries outside South Africa. As you can see, there was Germany where they did a prototype where they used a machine learning technique that uses Gaussian mixture model and payments. So as you can see, most of them are not within the South African space. So hence we also feel that there's a need for as SMEs in South Africa to have tailor-made cybersecurity analytics systems. However, there was one study that we found which was in 2016, which however we did exclude it because most of our papers were including from 2019 to currently 2030. However, this paper explored the perception of cybersecurity among South African SMEs and the factors influencing the implementation. It actually focused on the use of detection systems by SMEs for security vulnerability detection, unauthorized access and poor network performances. And some of this findings vary depending on the SMEs as well. I'm not sure, since I'm out of time, just to address this last slide. So based on our discussion analysis, we actually found that there's actually a very gap for cybersecurity analytics within the South African SMMEs, since there are not any implemented cybersecurity analytics systems within South Africa. Most of them variously are outside South Africa. And then also, while several countries have delved into the intersection of the machine learning and the cybersecurity for SMMEs, South African specifically, they remain largely uncharted in this context. I think I'll finish here because the other one is just the conclusion, which just specifies that the next future work will be on the deployment of cybersecurity analytics within the systems within the SME in South Africa, and also to find the efficiency of those systems that we actually researched on. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. Questions, remarks, feedback?
Yeah, one quick question. The list that is given usually have supervised learning.
Yes.
Why is there a specific reason for that we have not collected the unsupervised part? Because if you want to be secure against the future threats,
Yes.
then you cannot rely completely on the supervised part.
Yes.
So-
I think also based on that, it's more on that more unsupervised machine learnings are the ones that people actually doing out there. In as much as they are not really, they cannot in the future, they're not really that much secure. I think that's one of the things that also need to look into.
Any other questions? Yes, please.
In your research, why do you think we haven't been able, as South Africa, haven't been able to go through this route?
I think that, as I mentioned, also some of the issues challenging is budget as well. Because some of the SMMEs, they actually don't have much budget to actually invest money into the cybersecurity analytics system. So I think that's one of the issues, and as well as lack of awareness. Some of them are not aware, because you find that some MSME companies, they'll find being hacked by just a simple of an email. So I think it's more of being aware, as well as if having a budget for that, hence it will be able to actually exploring a tailor-made, cost-effective system that can actually assist the SMEs.
How many replies did you get for SMEs? I mean, how many replies from the same SMEs? You just got one reply, or you tried to apply this survey for the government?
So far, it was mostly based on the research. We didn't do much of a survey because currently we are into trying to find different challenges from different SMEs that we can actually be able to assist in implementing a tailor-made system for the government, generally on it.
Okay, the next speaker, Syed Hamoud Al-Fahmi, is in the room. If not, we'll move forward. Gamston, Nanko. Guys, that's it. The organizers asked me to ask you to be friendly, to stay in front of the room, take a picture, and so on. And I have to give you some good participation.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, first of January is yours. There you go. We have this one, right? That's it.
No.
Good. Okay. Okay, guys, so please. We'll bring this around. Yeah, go ahead. Go for it. Yes, I'm by you. Picture. Guys, you're the important one.
You are, please.
Now we'll have enough time to discuss about cybersecurity.
Yeah, I'd love to. Thank you.
Yes,
Oh, you look like okay. Oh, yes, yes, yes. Been giving it to my colleagues.
They talk also about this, they got a lot of they said they don't have to speak. So you have to say that word. And they have money. Yes, can so
To add to that, that's something very interesting. They were just called homomorphic encryption. It's a different approach because it means that you don't need to decrypt the data to process the data. You process the data in the encryption format itself. It's a homomorphic encryption. Homomorphic encryption. It's quite different. Because the moment when you say passwordless, I was about to say that. Exactly. That's a very interesting question. It's a way format. It's also the only problem is that it requires computing correctly. We are actually making more real. That's the only disadvantage that exists with this method. But it is completely currently used as well, where the computation is not an issue. And of course, coming to the future of quantum, this is pretty much possible. Might be something you should do right.
Guys, I only wanted to let you know that the organizer has set up a coffee break if you want, and you can benefit from the fact that I believe the parallel sessions are not ended yet, so you may find some goodies or something, or at least coffee.
Yeah,
in the lobby.
thank you.
Thank you.
also
I'm not a scholar. I enjoy implementing and I know it's mostly research. It's mostly research.
Because I feel like
The presentation will be here, but I believe my colleague will
Just
Yes, this one actually. It's a one-day physical presentation.
for example,
And also we have we have
so to become a professor,
we have do you have a presentation?
for professorship,
And you will be presenting it.
so I just give you some, I hope for it.
I see the point
let's come on.
of your
Where's our electricity?
And the power station. So, I was
think so. You can copy paste it, so we have a lot of time in the sessions.
We move from
Just
IT research. How's the research?
and then
I love this.
Is it? No, research is a
Now the
I like it.
No, what we do, it's not like right now, we are still like, we are trying to so actually, very good so our community is so we so we do the
Essentially, those what's the kind of concept that they need?
that is using one skills once you find
So instead of when
so we start it was something for us. Then later but then especially tested so because some of the people that are using very yours. On some links
What are you presenting? After lunch?
yeah, after no, I'm chilling. That station that I'm
I was saying, which section is this?
let me break it.
I have a
person that access this. That is essentially like saying like what is the difference between giving
Oh, you're the one who's during the session.
Yeah, and I'm also
Are you also presenting? Oh, I see. I think it's
so what did you say?
I studied.
Oh,
So
you're using
Up to it.
up to masters. Up to masters, but mostly my masters was mostly on image processing. System
but then
Because we do have contracts with Fuji.
yes.
It's
Even
no, we do have a cybersecurity project.
yes, I know.
So it falls under my
Our
economy.
department.
Yeah, it falls under my economy.
that you know what
That's nice. That's interesting.
But I'm also sometimes I assist them. That's why I study. But my PhD after. Yeah, same. I think we miss it.
I forgot already. I saw it. Yeah, mine is Christina.
Because right now, I'm learning engineering, but I like mechanical is kind of electrical
That's why I went
engineering.
to electronics mostly because I like circuit designing, all of those designs.
Yeah, we see each other open because we have a project.
No, we do. I know it's different, but I think the ESCOM one was not signed up, so I think we know this fine.
Yeah, we did. I was
Billy is the one in charge, right?
you know, there were so many people I can't remember.
But yeah, I know. You know, the same team. That's fine.
So our general
Yeah, I saw.
But
I think some more.
in terms of
I'm also doing it
things
around
where there's a multi-things, when you test that, you actually include vegetable as a as I said, if we
when I make some
using something like flat, we can implement a biometrics. So it's more like
Analyzing the data.
what are
So
you
basically,
building?
the most people
What
is just
device
getting
you
used to
building?
actually just
You're
writing
building it for
based
what?
on months they
So
trying to
that,
see if also
you can't necessarily, you can't implement
like
biometrics.
literature is
yeah, literature is really high. So we basically what we did was look at cases between any
You can access the hardware and software.
and which is our
All the
the issues that now we have a lot of facilities that come to they're not aware of the cybersecurity, how things can be assisted. So we're trying to see if there's anything that's really happening that's part of tailor-made for South Africa, but based on the research, most of the systems are expensive, and definitely they will say they don't have budget, they don't have money, and not even money, they don't have resources, because also they don't have money to pay and get those resources. And also the expensive, the system. We are actually looking into the trying to create or develop a tailor-made based on the
I think it would be nice if we can have it just
No,
like now when I was doing my
because we work for, what is it, for,
you know, in the information system, that's the experience. I was
for me to say that we have
Why
process of finding
to understand
almost all of them? It's actually that's actually because now you can only be focused on one and not about the other. Then someone will come and tell you, you have it in the previous speech, so that you can say the findings, exactly.
so for example, especially that anything else
I can imagine how many ticket rush
every when I went to the airport, they got up to my I had to go there. I only came this
so you feel like,
it's
and then you came back again this morning.
my flight was that fixed. So it's
You know, there was a bit of facilities for us. They accommodations, everything is actually.
when I was supposed to
Just take the, so that it reminds me of
so it's not
what's happening tomorrow? Maybe those ones who are wanting to know what they got because we didn't get, we only got for the 6 people.
so when is I think it's good a lot. So I travel for because before I used to work as a makeup. So since I came I did my house at 5. I did it also
from Midland going to Centurion, Victoria is worse.
So yeah, but I think I'm going to
Why do you have to leave? You need to ask how old are you? You still say it's 60, you still have it. You are 60 and we can say that like 40 years.
but I will leave it.
No.
You can't just say, because I think.
You know what am I reading?
Yeah.
Thanks, man.
As I said, don't.
Are you not aware that now I see?
No, no, no,
This digitalization is just
It is true because I think it's one of the things where, especially after COVID, as much as we like, we try to say, it's just too much.
I think they want to get away with it, like they want to remove the money system. So everything will be like, so they are going to introduce a central agreement to avoid the crime to this like according to every year. So yes, their folks, this is a challenge. You know, also so the university for COVID certificate is going to be access if you don't have life. Those people who vaccinated, they already have cancer. You see, is taking.
It won't be like anyone, you just go whatever you have scanned and you are whatever it is.
So once they start to get into it, they increase our norm on that. Because they also have no life. Whereas,
So you shouldn't
no.
Why didn't you vaccinate?
This idea what they were from the second one of vaccines, they are not so it's a way for them to also compromise. Yes. So they are keeping away around people. Once they gather the money system, nobody will get allowed. So people do business in business for hours.
Actually, interestingly, we had how there's certain skills that there are instances for someone like many on someone is saying like cybersecurity well to pay cybersecurity as a kind of friends, all of those things. And someone mentioned in terms of paying the money for something because you think that the linguistic was like she had she was paying credit cards, so she paid a credit card, but then within few weeks the money disappeared and then came back after 30 weeks. And then the person was telling her like instead of those things, but this like take that money, actually invest it or use it and retain them because they make benefit. They actually benefit from actually they get more money for the company than
Other people's
other people's money. What else is it?
So they don't submit it. They will only remain in other businesses. They only have one supermarket. So by this stage, this thing will
It's no longer nature, it's
so we need to go back to our view.
I think that's one thing that I also locally because I seen by this, the chicken, you could see a chicken that's really fresh.
Mm-hmm.
And humidified and a natural one, there's a huge difference.
So it's so good.
Yeah.
Just do all this stuff. And do it eating. Not just eating.
Just do the research.
Yeah.
I know.
But I will take your insights because I'm currently working with a social organization. They also ask for startup activity.
Why did you ask me?
I don't like business class, but I was very well.
It's fine. I'm just asking because I presented my contact with you.
You know business class?
No, I don't have.
No, it's fine. We'll just exchange. This is not only but I think I was supposed to be business class. No! I didn't. I think I was at the good side. I was in the good side. I think it's the same for like I was, yeah. Okay, this
So that's what we keep now.
The same as at the
yeah.
Okay, I'll just take some.
Your name is,
I'm also writing on the
and then you can also take I'm currently examining hieroglyphs.
meaning.
Hieroglyphs. Egyptian writing.
Is it? How is it?
No, it's nice.
Is it?
Because it has got over 400 characters. So it doesn't limit you. 27. Yes. So you can use different animals or letters to find one
Presentation just uploading.
You know, the spider even to place, they don't use performance. So I have to pay for my, they don't use performance to pay. So I have to pay for my pocket and I struggle to pay. They refuse the offer. I had to pay like 17,300 because it's in Europe. But next time I'm going. Because 650 euros. I saw 600 something. From the thing. Or you registered in? Did you register in? Because the time I paid, I was in Japan. At the city conference.
Yeah.
I was in Japan. No, that's
It was nice meeting you. I'm gonna come for your session. I'm done for the day. So I'm gonna come for your session and listen to it.
so they are just also I don't even think I'm going to follow this. It's something that I've worked with.
Which one?
Oh,
The top.
Well, it's based on averaging. So if you understand.
Okay, thank you.
So I've written in general, so I still can speak.
You will be the last one. Like you have to see because in the previous section there were some absences. Do you have a paper for the session? No. Okay, so you're only attending. Okay.
No, that's
Okay. Good morning once again. We will start the session on time as scheduled. I will be your session chair. My name is Will Sadan. I only want to tell you some, let's say, things that you have to be aware on your presentation. I will raise this yellow flag when there will be 3 minutes for the presentation left, and then I will raise the red one if the time has ended. The presentation, the overall presentation is 15 minutes with 12 minutes for presenting and 3 minutes for questions if we have any. We also have another paper in the session, so we will try to keep it in time as much as possible. So, I would like to introduce the first presentation, which is going to be conducted by myself. So, once again, my name is Will Sadan. I am part of a research group from the Technical University of Cluj-Napoca. The paper that we intend to present for this conference is automatic music generation using machine learning. And it is well known that music has a major influence in the everyday world, not only for communicating, as well for well-being and education. It also has an effect on the mental state, improving efficiency in the workplace or throughout the day by raising energy levels and motivation levels. Relevant studies and empirical investigation have proven that music has also essential functions in society. The objectives of our paper consist in finding and analyzing ways in which we can use machine learning in order to generate automatic music. We'll focus in this presentation on an introduction, then I will be presenting to you the state of the art, then the architecture and implementation of our algorithm, as well as in the end I will move on with some conclusions. Well, as I have already mentioned, music has an important impact in our lives, being capable of stimulating the brain to reduce stress, to feel calm, relaxed, or excited. Online statistics show that an average person listens to over 900 hours of music per year. The studying of automatic generating of the music can contribute to our understanding of human perception and cognition, and it provides valuable insights into the underlying principles of music theory, composition, and arrangement. As part of our motivation, taking in consideration that music can also be used in therapy, there are intensive studies, for example, the disease of tinnitus. Tinnitus being a disease in where the patients may hear constant noise into their brain. One of the treatment is also to provide different sounds in order to ease the pain of the patients that suffer from this disease. Music is also seen as a language, a type of language, and specialists in psychologists have found similarities between these two. From an auditive point of view, both consist of audio signals represented by sound sequences. Both music and language are found on a specific set of rules, having a specific syntax and structures. One interesting fact about both music and language is the predictive characteristics, meaning that just like also in music, when listening to a speech or some music, you may easily depict the ending of those sequences. As part of the state-of-the-art, recurrent neural networks are an effective way in generating music, as they make efficient use of temporal information, and music is based on temporal dependencies across time. We have the long-short memory network, LSTM, that is a specific type of recurrent neural network that stores information for extended periods of time. There are also several approaches, such as the music transformers, that are not just capable of creating new composition or new musical pieces, but also to continue adding notes and pitching to already existing ones. We also have variational autoencoders. These ones are using models with regularized training. They avoid very well overfitting and ensure that the latent space has suitable properties for a generative process. And as well, we have another way of generating with generative adversarial network, the GAN, which have global latent conditioning and efficient parallel samplings. The main idea is that generating music may be seen as a prediction problem. Given the set of inputs and outputs, the architecture is trained to predict the next samples or the next notes. Well, in terms of implementation, the music background is related to the MIDI files format, where MIDI is an acronym for Musical Instrument Digital Interface, and this one represents the editing tool. It allows the digital music to speak the same language. It carries data that specify instructions for music as note, as pitch, as the velocity, as clock signals, and duration. We have used and we need the MIDI files format to easily work with audio files, as they are much more easier to use than the MP3s or the WAV, the WAV files, which contain audio data as well. For example, in terms of piano instruments, which will be used a lot to generate music samples in our study, the note is produced by a single key or a chord or two keys or more keys which are played simultaneously. The note objects contain information about the pitch, octave, and the offset. In the presented figures that you have over here, we are seeing the distribution of note variables as pitch, step, and duration. And these represent the input data, or will represent the input data for the training. In terms of our implementation, We studied a lot the long short-term memory approach to generate music, and as it is the simplest one, and it is one of the most documented ones throughout the scientific literature, having a strong background. And here you can see the implementation steps. So we had to take the data set, we imported the data set with the MIDI files that contain the data related to the music that we want to generate. We extracted the notes and stored them. We then created the machine learning model based on pitch, step, and duration as parameters. We have trained the model on the data set. Then we had to generate the music on the, with the trained model. And then we evaluated the song. Then coming to some conclusions in order to improve the parameters in order to obtain a much more reliable output. As for the practical example, one may the figure that is presented into this slide presents the loss function graph. We have reached by expressing first the loss parameter for the model. To evaluate the model, we have chosen the mean square error, and you can see also the parameters that was used in order to train the model. We have used a total number of more than 11,000 nodes. We had a 100 sequence length. The vocab size was 128, meaning that the maximum number of pitches available. We considered batches of 32 and a learning rate of 0.001. The structure of the neural network consisted of 7 layers. We had one input layer, we had the LSTM layer, 2 dense layers, and 3 layers for the output for the pitch, step, and duration. And we had a total of trainable parameters of more than 1,600,000 parameters. The optimizer that we used was Adam. So, as for the practical example, one may deduce from these graphs results that all the notes have the same duration, varying in step and in pitch, even if most of the notes have the similar pitch. However, hearing the actual results on the audio devices give the impression of repetitive musical piece. So we tried to improve the results by further changing the values in terms of hyperparameters, but also changing the structure of the neural network in order to obtain a better model. We have then made another attempt to generate music using the same LSTM architecture, and we had a database, the same database used as input data, but it followed just to train the algorithm for a sequence of 100 notes according to their pitch property, not the duration and the step. As for the step, they were all appended consecutively at equal time interval. The structure of the neural network was a little bit modified. We had 3 LSTM layers, 2 batch norms, and 2 dropouts, and several dense layers. This time, we have created a faulty sample music, and even if it does not repeat the musical notes after a period of 20 seconds, it sounds surprisingly good. So the results were surprisingly good. One way to evaluate our songs was was also to use the Shazam application in order to see if we have some results over there. And using this application on the results, we surprisingly have received that our generated music had similarities, at least 5 similarities provided by Shazam. That meant that the musical piece has small parts that are already included in other composition made by other authors. We have also had other approaches that we studied in this project. So, for example, we have used TensorFlow and Magenta, and we used also the variational autoencoder for that, or NSYNC, from different vendors or from different big companies in order to generate, and you can see the further results into the into the article. Sorry, show this one to myself. So, we have come to some conclusions using these techniques in order to generate music automatically. So we have to be honest. We have discovered that there is a lack of understanding. So, for example, AI-generated music may lack the emotional depth or intention and understanding of, let's say, the human composers have. Also, I would like to be a second time honest with you. If we are studying, so taking in consideration that we have studied classical compositions, there we may have the lack of understanding or not humane touch of that music, but nowadays, taking in consideration that we have a lot of electronic music, to be honest, I don't know how much feeling is into the electronic music. Originality versus imitation. So, for example, we often generated music, and music is generated via patterns, and we have seen from testing our results the fact that there could be in the future a lot of copyright problems with the fact that if we repeat continuously sequences and we generate them automatically with already existing ones, we may have some disputes over there in between the composers. Also, the complexity of the music being a multidimensional art form with intricate compositional elements, the AI algorithm may struggle to handle the complexity of music, including harmony or rhythm or timbre, in a truly creative and coherent manner. As the results, the work stated in our study proved that long short-term memory layers were the most effective one in generating the musical sequences, given the data that we had at our disposal. The examples created proved that the fact that music generation can, automatic music generation can be used as a sample, as a starting point, or even an inspiration source for composers for the future. One may use an application that looks on the internet to find the music they are listening to, and when listening to the generated LSTM song, I have told you that we found more than 5 similar songs with the public Shazam application. The musical part may be developed in such a way to generate a large variety of music according to the distinctive styles and even the artist. So we concluded that yes, it can be used very efficiently, and then we plan to develop our models in order to have much more realistic and to make the transition from a composition to an automatic generated melody to make it as seamlessly as possible. So, yes, sorry, we have, yeah, one minute. If you have any questions, thank you very much. Yes.
And is the intent used somewhere, or it's just an experimental study? I mean,
it is an experimental study, and actually, we are trying to integrate this, let's say, small part of our project into a bigger study that we try to generate the music automatically, also depending on the mood of a subject. So we know that there are a lot of big companies that are trying to now do this type of studies in order to affect the mood and the different type of human stages to improve it with music and with sound and also lighting. Yes, it is part of this bigger project in order for us to see the effect of music or the way that the music affects also the physical state of mind of people.
so you don't have to generate music with you, right?
I have. Yes, I have. I hope that we can play it. So we have here. This is the sample that was the input. Let me see if it is. Okay, sorry. Yeah.
maybe it's better if you play it on your phone.
Yeah, but let me see if I have it here. We can.
I think the sound is off for the it's not off on the laptop, but I don't know.
No, it reads the sound through the picture, and the picture is only connected to the project. This is
Oh, yeah, okay.
What we can try, I can take this one off. And
Yeah, yeah.
let's see, because I've seen it disconnected and it got reconnected again. One moment.
Yeah.
Just increase the volume.
I think we have a crash.
Okay. So this was. It's a longer piece, but then the automatic generated one.
The WhatsApp audio file, no.
Yeah, but
Not
no, it's plain. So we also stated in the article, sorry, I believe this can be used, for example, to be only part of the final composition if needed.
Pretty nice.
Now this one is like 2 minutes long, so I don't know if you have actual time.
Can we go, or at least can I have one more question?
Yeah,
Yeah, just in terms of the instruments,
yeah.
does it decide on its own instruments, or you basically are translating it?
We mainly tested our models for piano tunes.
Yes.
And we have seen that different approaches are more suitable for different instruments. Yeah. But we mainly made it with classical and piano instruments.
Okay, super, because what I was thinking is that it could, at another level, perhaps be it's kind of invents its own instruments. Maybe that would be a good.
Yeah.
Thanks. If you don't mind, can we move to the next one?
Yes, we can move. Are there any other questions?
Yeah, I have, but I will make it.
Okay, thank you. Then we have our second paper, and it is Giancarlo Storti.
Over your, let's take a picture.
Yeah, with me.
Yes,
Okay.
to complete the process.
We will be doing a picture in the end.
Okay.
So if you want, we can.
Yeah, I can have it done.
Oh, okay. In the end, we can also do a photo handling all the diplomas or the certificate of participation. So, we have our new paper, Giancarlo Storti Gaggiani, modeling, aging, and power production of solar PV using machine learning techniques. Yeah, one moment, we have to start sharing. One, because I disconnected this one for the sound. Yes, and just F. I don't have another. Sure.
Because I use Linux, so I don't know these applications how they work.
Yeah, right.
Thank you very much. Okay, I am Giancarlo Storti Gaggiani. I will be presenting this work, which is well, some sort of initial experimentation about using machine learning techniques to do essentially two different things. One thing is a prediction of solar power production, and the second thing is some sort of analysis of the problems due to aging of solar panels. Okay, and this work was done essentially by my student Saroni, that is now doing her PhD at the Aachen in Germany, and well, I'm Giancarlo. Politecnico di Milano. Okay, as I will try to be quick. The main things I will be presenting, well, after some introduction, something about the forecasting methods which are commonly used for solar production, something about the data we had to create our model, tuning and evaluation of the model itself, and some results due to regarding the short-term predictions for power production. We will compare something about the different networks used, and then we will go to the aging of the panels topic. After that, some proposal about possible model performance improvements, and then conclusions, as usual in these cases. Well, first of all, this is the global solar power photovoltaic capacity in the world up to 2021, and as one can see, we are going quite fast towards a very large exploitment of this kind of technology. And this is the nice thing. The bad thing is that the variability, as everyone knows, the variability in photovoltaic power production is quite large, because obviously you must understand that even a small cloud passing over the sun causes a very quick drop in the production of the network of the solar field itself. So this gives issues such as grid stability, which must be in some ways moderated. And having the possibility to do some forecasting of the production of the solar panel also gives you the possibility of having better energy management. And well, obviously also cost savings, because to overcome the problems due to this kind of variability, one needs to have some backup sources of energy which come into play quickly and cover up for the problems due to the solar panels production. So the typical forecasting methods one usually uses for these kind of problems are sky images, which are some sort of cameras which directly look at the sky and predict the possibility of a cloud passing over your solar panels. Obviously this has some disadvantage, because you need to have, you can actually have some very, very short time prediction using this kind of images. Anyway, even having a very short time prediction is very good. Satellite imaging, which gives you a more longer range of prediction. There are some numerical weather prediction. Well, these are the usual numerical models which are used by all the sites that do weather forecasting, and statistical methods, which are in a certain sense also some sort of a machine learning themselves. Okay, among the among the statistical methods, the best the most used and well known are autoregressive moving average, the classical ARMA models, while the machine learning based forecasting are based on these kind of networks that everyone knows here, I suppose. So for the state of the art is deep machine learning, and for that one may use convolutional neural networks or recurrent neural networks, or LSTM, as the ones that were just being presented a moment ago. So something about the data exploration and pre-processing. We have data from a quite long range of time from a database in California, this one specifically. There is also a very good database in Canada for this kind of same thing. I think it's frozen again. Do I have to press this?
Because this one continuously disconnects.
Okay, so when you take a look at the data that you obtain in this database, you will see that there are quite a lot of totally useless data points, specifically points where you have, I don't know, solar production without any sun, which obviously means that your solar sensor is faulty, or vice versa, you may have zero solar production when there is lots of sun. And that simply means that the panels are disconnected from the grid, but which itself it's not a problem, but since we want to do forecasting, we don't care for that kind of points. So the first thing one has to do with this kind of data is to clean up the data and obtain only usable data. And this is a scatter plot of what you obtain when you have the irradiance on the x-axis and the power production on the y-axis. This is an example of the raw data as a time series. These are 2 weeks of production. Well, this is in 2014, but that doesn't, it's actually good. And as you can see, obviously there is a very strong correlation between the irradiance value and the power production value, which is, I would say, quite obvious. Okay, the prediction horizons which we needed to consider are the ultra short term, which means a few seconds to just a few minutes, which, as I said before, it is anyway useful because there are cases where you have to back up your power production, and you can do it quite quickly in most cases. Then we have the very short terms, which means from minutes to about 6 hours ahead. And then there are the longer terms, and obviously they have different uses. So the very short term is for real-time monitoring and to back up on when you have ramping events, ramping up or ramping down, obviously also. And this is for the economic dispatch and load following. Usually the market is very quick regarding energy, meaning that even if you have a forecast of 1 or 2 hours, you can obtain some very good economic forecast of how much your energy will cost. And this is for unit commitment and day-ahead markets. So when you will do a forecast on how much the energy will cost a day ahead or so longer term, and the unit commitment, meaning that some units, especially backup units, may need to have a long term to be running, so you know if you will start that unit or not when you have 24 to 72 hours. Well, then maintenance scheduling and then just big network operation planning when you are considering mountain years. Obviously, as much as you go further on to the right on this graph, it means the possibility of having a precise prediction is less possible, obviously. Well, these are the steps in machine learning. I will not go through them because it is quite useless, I would say, in this session. And the hyperparameter tuning, which I feel everyone knows what I mean, meaning that once you have the model that tries to analyze your data, you must do something to see what are the best dimensions for your network, the best training steps, constants, and so on. Another thing on which I will go quite quickly, since this is essentially a machine learning based session, are the typical kind of performance metrics that are used. And so we have mean square error, mean absolute error, and group mean squared error. And by the way, I see that here I have an error because this xy, I just noticed it right now, should be y hat, sorry. Maybe even the paper is correct, but these are the typical performance metrics that are used to analyze the performance of your network. And finally, this is what we obtain. In this case, we have done the short-term prediction, meaning that we are looking for a horizon of 1 hour. Okay, so we look at the data that we had before for 6 hours, and then we try to predict what will happen in the next hour. And the results we obtain are, I would say, rather nice, even if not beautiful. And these are the results obtained using different learning rates. In this specific case, we have a very small learning rate, a higher and higher learning rate, and here we have varying values of the learning rate and decaying learning rate. And we get the best results here and here, and once more we are disconnected, so I try pressing this. Okay, it's connecting. And these are some of the results that we have obtained with the prediction, with the evaluation metrics that I have outlined just before that, well, as I said, maybe everyone knows. And these are the kind of, the type of learning rate politics that we have used in this case. So we tried also using different networks. So this is the comparison of the CNN with the autoencoder, LSTM and GRU. And even if it looks better than GRU, well, in this window, in this very small window, as an average result, the LSTM has been, we have seen that it is the best one to predict this kind of data, which is essentially a time series. And these are some of the results of the comparison of the different kind of networks, once more with the same metrics that I have outlined before. Okay, now let's quick talk about aging of PV panels. It is in a certain sense a different kind of topic, but we have decided, I think this is quite interesting, to use the same kind of model that we use for prediction and try to assess the possibility, well, not to assess the value of the decay of the panels in this specific case. So as you can see here, we have, this is the various causes of aging. So we have dust, delamination, hot spots that form on the panels itself. Discoloration, meaning that the support of the panels changes colors due to aging, obviously. They may break because of meteoric events. And also the effects of temperature or humidity will affect your panel age. And the idea is that if one takes a look at what happens between, if one compares the predicted value by the model and the value that actually you have on the panels when you train your models when the network is very young, the panel field is very young. So when you have very young and just new panels, you train your model there. And then you go and see what happens if you use that predictor model for what is happening right now, maybe 10 years after. Then you see that the difference grows quite a lot. So this is one of the ways that we have used it to try to predict this. We have seen some cases, like in this case, where actually the prediction of difference goes down. And typically, because after some years, some people go and clean the panels, which is quite obvious, I could say. And we have done also some other data analysis, trying to fit a model, comparing once more the actual data with the model data. And this is the slope of the prediction of the slope of the how the model is predicted with respect to the thing itself. Okay? I have to go quick, they tell me. And with the linear model, one sees here that there is some situations where the slope seems to go up, but the best results is by using a quadratic interpolation model. And just going quickly, model performance, we have seen that it is quite useful to train two different models, one for the very good days and one for the bad days. So one may use the two models in parallel and assess in real time which one is going better. I will go even more quickly. These are some of the results of comparing the two models. As you can see, we can obtain some extremely good results in that case. And finally, well, these are the conclusions that I believe that I will read the conclusions so I may answer the questions. I think that's the best way. And you can read the conclusions, they are just there.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions?
Yeah, thanks for your talk. You trained your models only on the power production data?
Sorry, I have
You trained the training model. Also training data for your models is only power production data from
the Los Angeles field that I was talking about. We also have tried the Canadian one, and it works as well, but I did not present this because it's something we did afterwards.
Did you consider also weather conditions?
Sorry?
The weather conditions are also considered? Or?
Yes, absolutely. We consider also temperature and humidity. And we do have some results also on that, but once more I did not present them because on this preliminary work we just focused on irradiance versus power production. Just to see if it is possible to have something that you can have a very simple sensor, such as a pyrometer, okay, and use that to assess the power production you will have after 1 hour, without considering other less easy to assess measurements such as temperature, which may vary locally on your field, or humidity, which is something more difficult to assess.
Have you already verified your model by predicting the power production for example, the upcoming December?
No, we didn't.
And compared then in future?
No, we didn't do that. We used only the data for the time being. Okay.
Yeah, I believe another question.
Yeah, it's very interesting work. Have you looked at time series modeling, like a RIMA and SARIMA methods, using it in conjunction with this, or how did that perform in relation to your?
No, I must admit that we only tried to see if it was possible using machine learning to do it. So I actually am, my bad, I would not know right now if ARMA or RIMA models are better or worse, I must tell you. So I must admit this.
Good. Thank you very much. Yeah, I believe it's custom. This is the certificate. So congratulations. Thank you very much. If it's okay, we will do a photo at the end, so we don't have to be that. Only if it's mandatory. So is it mandatory, or we will do it in the end? Perfect. Perfect. Thank you very much. Then I would like to introduce the next presenter, Reinhard Kohler, with a paper entitled Recommended Related Research Paper by Topic Modeling.
There's a traffic jam apparently.
No problem. Hi.
Oh, you're there.
Have you gonna speak?
The ones in the receiving, they said, but after this one.
Okay, so as you've heard, my name is Reinhard Kohler. I'm a professor at Nelson Mandela University. And you might know that my name is dead last on this. So I know the least possible about this paper, that's what it is possible to know. So I'm a little bit intimidated by the audience that's standing, but luckily we've got some time to make up, so I've got a good excuse for going fast and not saying much. The topic, as you've heard, is recommending related research papers by topic modeling. And essentially, we all know this kind of idea of doing a search and getting some arbitrary number, 124,000 hits. Yay, I'm going to start reading for the next 20 years. And then I'll know something about the topic. But it holds, obviously, in any other kind of environment as well. That there's such a lot of information out there nowadays that regardless of what we are searching for, whether it's research papers or whether it's something to buy, kind of thing. It is just, we're just inundated. So that's the basic foundation for why we're doing this, is trying to understand the technologies that we can use, how we can use machine learning to actually come up and help some of these things. Now, of course, I also need to talk about recommender systems, because this is actually what it is we're trying to recommend. Now, recommender systems is nothing new. Anybody that's been to Amazon or watched Netflix or any of those kind of things would know that you get some recommendations based on whatever you did in the past. Nowadays, you can even go and set the things that it should use to recommend and whatever if you go to Amazon. So there's a lot of work being done in this. The simple version of this is that a recommender system takes a lot of things, for example, customer ratings, purchase histories, preferences, whatever you put in through some algorithm, and it comes up with a set of results, very basic stuff. Now in lots of academic research, things like the Science Direct and all of those kind of things, they also recommend other papers. And sometimes it's better than others. In this specific case, you'll see that all the things that it represents, you probably can't read there, but I can. You'll see that it's coming from the same volume and the same number of this. So it's basically saying, well, you're interested in something in this volume. Read the rest of the volume. I mean, that's not really very helpful as far as I'm concerned. So that is the kind of thing that we're trying to get a better grip on. We investigated clustering, which is basically an unsupervised technique, often used in customer profiling and segmentation of customer groups, etc. Of course, we're using it to try and identify documents that have some conceptual similarities. And this is useful for our purposes of trying to find related research papers, but it's also useful in other things like duplicate detection, plagiarism detection, fake news identification, and there's actually a couple of other things listed in the paper. So what did we do in terms of our experimental prototype to recommend our research papers? We've taken 10 years worth of papers from a specific conference. So we decided to just look at a specific body of knowledge that's a little bit more constrained so that we could actually, figure out whether our stuff works. So we take from Information South Africa ISA papers, it's a security conference. And initially we wanted to do the whole papers, but it turned out that some of the pre-processing that needs to be done, as we'll see later on, is rather involved, so we eventually stuck to titles and abstracts so that the poor master student could eventually graduate. So we took 10 years worth of that, 254 papers, and what I'm going to talk about now is based on that data set. We did some initial data cleaning, pre-processing kind of things, regular expressions to remove email addresses and that kind of stuff, which really shouldn't have any bearing on the thing. We removed stop words. We built a list of 282 stop words. We had to process the PDFs to remove ligatures, and if you're not into the printing presses, that's the F's and the I's that become one character and that kind of thing. And we used a porter-based stemmer to stem the word so that we can just get to the basic, the stem of the word. So for our topic modeling, we sort of took a bag of words approach, and we scored our bag of words in terms of counting the number of times they appear. Now this is, of course, where the first problem comes in when you just use the title and the abstracts, because your number of words are limited kind of thing. But if it works for such a small number, relatively okay, then for a whole paper, hopefully we can infer that it should work as well. We used the GenSim library to do that, and then we used LDA, or latent direct allocation. I can't pronounce that word, but anyway, to try and determine the optimal number of topics was very challenging, because now you can say, well, make me 5 topics, or make me 35 topics, or whatever number, and to do the optimization of that. In fact, I'm pretty sure that we are not at the optimal solution. We had a better solution than an arbitrary number, that I'm fairly certain of. but was a lot. So we got worked out a coherence score on the number of topics on that corpus, and you can see that it does rank, but it doesn't really tell us much more. So it tells us, well, this is slightly better than the other one, but it doesn't much. So we also did some inspection using PyLDA Viz to look at each of the topics and get a feeling for what it was. And the combination of that led us to believe that for this data set, using the titles and the abstracts at least around 20 topics is optimal for this corpus. And then we calculated the Jensen-Shannon distances, where our input query is the LDA topic distribution of a specific document, and of course the other is the larger matrix. So looking at the document inside the larger matrix. So our summary of the graphical summary of the model is very well. It's actually, except that it's a very nice picture, it's actually very straightforward in terms of how these kind of things typically work anyway. So nothing particularly exciting about it. We've got the corpus around that. We've got a training kind of situation where we train the model, and then of course we put in an academic paper and we do a similar kind of thing with it based on the trained model to come up with the topics. What did we really find? Well, we found that firstly the pre-processing was really the challenge here. To do all the machine learning stuff was not really all that exciting kind of thing. In fact, it was pretty boring. But to actually get the data there was the majority of our challenge. And then the second challenge, of course, was to get the LDA parameters tuned. There was manual, or there is always manual intervention needed to really verify the validity. We based on our initial parameter values on what we could find in prior scholarly research and through experimentation, as I just said. And we also realized that increasing the minimum probability parameter led to exclusion of a substantial number of words that contribute to the contextual understanding of each topic set. And I suspect that that has also got to do with the small number of words that we actually analyzed inside that. If we were to deal with a paper of 10,000 words, maybe that would have been less of an issue at least. And then of course, since in the Jensen-Shannon divergence calculation, we didn't really have adjustable parameters, most of the tuning actually happened before that time. We did find, and I don't actually have a slide on that, so I'll go back to this one and talk about it. We did find that for some topics, it really worked, it really did a good job. In that corpus, for example, for digital forensics, all the things that if we throw a digital forensics paper on it, it gave related papers which were spot on. Every single one that came out was clearly in that direction. And for other things like privacy, it was less successful. It still gave some stuff that might have been there. We're not 100% sure why. It might again have to do with the corpus of words, and it might have to do with the fact that in certain subject fields like privacy, some of the subject-specific words might be much less. It might also appear in a lot of other places, and as you've seen in that LDA Viz depiction, some of those topics were rather close to one another, and we suspected or we know that is what caused that. We're not sure whether it will change if we've got the full paper rather than just the abstracts and the title. My gut feel is that it would at least become better, but I've actually got no evidence except my gut feel for that. It's not very scientific, so we won't talk about that any further. So I think I made up hopefully on some time. Thank you for listening. If you've got any questions, then you should ask them now, and I will gladly refer them to my non-existent co-authors. Otherwise, go and change the world. But anyway.
Are you constantly using ChatGPT for
for some of the preprocessing steps. It may help. Of course, it has limitations, but since it is a public data, these titles and abstract.
Yeah. So the time frame of this research were a little bit sort of. So yeah, I agree. There might be some stuff there which we would now be able to very usefully implement, but when the student was there, we didn't have access to any of that.
Would you be able to adjust, would this be able to be adjusted to different applications, like moving it from looking up journal publications to like components? To give advice on that? Because there would be similar types of data. I know it's very different data, but it still have like a description of the component, like the interfaces and things.
Well, it depends on how the description of the component looks, but it should be able to work on basically any text-based data. So one of the visions of this was that one would, for example, also, this is not different kind of data, but it's slightly different application, would be able to integrate that, for example, into a conference management system, so that because some conferences you want to write something with, you look at the keywords that they give, and it's like, is my work actually applicable here or not? And if one could then submit your paper and have an automatic check to say, oh, this looks like some of the topics that we've had in the conference, but or no, this is not the kind of thing that it does here always. But I can't see any reason why it can't hold for any textual data that's got stuff in.
Thanks.
Okay. Thank you very much, Professor Reinhardt. Thank you very much. Great. We have our next presentation. Ebenezer Janse van Rensburg, identifying users through voice during speech authentication.
You already copied? No, I think this. Yeah, but did you copy? Oh, yeah. Oh, okay.
Hello, my name is Gibbon and I'm here to present a paper entitled Identifying US Through Voice During Speaker Authentication. Speaker authentication occurs when you authenticate yourself by means of voice. In this instance, the valid individual speaks his phrase, password, and then is approved by the system to gain access to information. If an invalid individual repeats that phrase, he is denied. Even if he uses a recording device that recorded the valid user, it would still be denied. However, when he forces the valid individual to authenticate himself, the system would approve this authentication because it's the valid user that's speaking. And there's no real way to check if he was forced. Our experimental setup used the RAV-test dataset for the emotions. It fed the random forest. We extracted multiple feature extraction techniques and different combinations of each technique. And then each combination used 10 tests. In the dataset, there were 24 actors, 12 male, 12 female, which is a good split. Each portrayed 8 emotions. Each emotion had 2 sentences, and each sentence had 2 repetitions. So it's a good dataset for starting point for emotions, but it's not very useful if you compare it to real-world data, as these are actors and they're portraying an emotion, but it's not really based on real events. Here are the 8 emotions that they used: calm, happy, sad, fearful, angry, disgust, surprised, neutral. We did not use neutral as it did not really give any value. And with the remaining 8 emotions, how do you detect duress? What do you call, which emotion is duress? So there's multiple combinations. You could say it's a combination of 4 emotions, 3 emotions, or even 1 emotion. And even at that, we're not even sure if those are duress emotions. But for the purpose of this study, we used fearful, surprised, and disgust. Even though you could argue that those aren't duress emotions, they were just used for testing. Here's an example of the confusion matrix that was generated from the random forest. On the left, the rows are the emotions that were provided to it, and the columns on top of what the system detected it was. If you check at the bolded numbers going diagonal, these are correctly identified. As discussed, was discussed, was correct. Surprised, was surprised, these were correct. So these are correctly identified, and all the others were incorrectly identified. Our approach was to divide the duress emotion that we selected from the rest of the emotions. So that was this horizontal line. The top three are what we selected, and these are the ignored emotions, the other emotions, and the same goes for these. These are our selected duress emotions, and these are the other emotions. The top left, you can see these are the correctly identified emotions. These are the true positive values. At the top right, these are the false positives. These were the false negatives, sorry. These were incorrectly identified as negative emotions, as ignored emotions, even though they came from the fearful, they were incorrectly identified. Bottom left, the same. They were incorrectly identified as duress emotions, and the bottom right were correctly identified as ignored emotions. These are ignored emotions that were ignored. Ignored emotions that were ignored. And in this example, you can see calm was incorrectly identified as disgust, surprised, and sad once, and correctly identified as itself 43 times. So this is our aggregated confusion matrix. We combined the ignored emotions, and we left out our selected duress emotions. So this is how it would look. And we use the performance metric called the utility value, which uses the predicted positive values at the far right. These are the collection of all of the duress emotions that we selected, including the incorrectly identified emotions, added to the true negative at the bottom right that were correctly identified as negative emotions. So we're giving it a positive value and then dividing it by the collection of all of them. So the goal of this value is to reduce the number of flags that it gives, the incorrect flags, because these are ignored emotions, but it's indicated that it was duress emotions. So with the utility value, we want to reduce the number of false warnings. This is an example of the results that we got. At the top, we have the feature extraction techniques. Then we have the combinations that they were used. Obviously, this is not extensive, but it's just for testing. And those two columns are the F-score, which is the average accuracy of the 10 tests, and the utility value of the 10 tests. This is our value. If you see the difference between the highest value and the lowest value of each, the F-score had a difference of 5.6, while the utility value has a difference of 1.5. So it's a wider spread with F-score, and it's a lower spread with utility value. This helps because F-score identifies each emotion in isolation, whereas ours combines them into a duress emotion. And we move to the highest of both. We have the highest of F-score, which is 60. It's 88.1. And we have the highest of utility value, 88.6, but it's a lower value of 56.2. So these two are not connected. Even though this one went down, the utility value went up. So there's a lot of information within voice, like your age, your health, your gender, and even normal information. We speak, we say something, these are words, and even if you listen to someone on the phone, you can guess what their age is, you can guess the gender, or if they're sick or something. The same can be said for emotion. We portray emotion in various different mediums. We portray the facial expressions, the hand gestures, the way we walk, or the way we speak. When we speak, we use different words, we use different speeds, we emphasize certain words, that's how we portray our emotion. So the point of this is we want to detect emotion within speech. We want to see if someone authenticates themselves, if they are being forced. The thing is, because emotion is so difficult to identify, we don't really want to, we don't want to deny access to the authentic individual. Even denying it could make the matter worse. We want to add a flag, we want to add a warning, we want to approve the request, but we want to add different steps in between to make sure that it doesn't get worse. It needs to be a collective of flags or warnings before it does anything. Thank you for listening.
Do you have any questions from the audience?
So you have used random forest, right? Have you applied other methods apart from random forest?
Yes, we used MLP, we used naive Bayes, we used SVM. and different versions of FPM.
So random forest gives the best results? Or?
Yes, with our results, we got the best results with the F-score, and then we just built from the F-score to the utility value. But yeah, even though it's not really a good accuracy, the 50-something%, but that was not the point. The point was to move it to the utility value.
Yes. Okay, one of the issues I was thinking is, what is the quality of your microphones on there? Were you using like very high quality microphones for the test examples?
I'm assuming the people that captured the data was using because it's a controlled environment, they all use the same microphone. I'm assuming it's a good quality. I need to check again, but yeah, they captured audio and video. So I just used the audio side. But yeah, they use the same microphone, so I'm assuming it's the same result.
Because I was thinking for some like access control things, you've got really crummy
Yeah,
microphones.
and even if it's over the phone.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a nice implementation if you can identify emotion over the phone, over the voice, for use in like hospitals, police stations or schools or something. But if the microphone isn't good, that's why it's nice to have it as a flag and not as an end-all be-all.
We have another question.
Can you go back to your confusion metrics?
Full one.
Yes. Can you say again how you develop your quadrants? I'm asking because it looks like farm had the best recognition there, but somehow it's.
Yeah, it's the disregard, yeah.
Yes.
So the sectors were, if I used my selected duress emotions, and then combined with these, so this quadrant is just the positive values. This is the good results. So we had duress identified as duress, fearful as fearful, and surprise as surprise. So these are the positive results, the good results. And then if we moved over, then it's like our selected emotions, which were duress, fearful, and surprise, incorrectly identified as different results. So this is these two quadrants, and then they just moved over to these because calm was incorrectly identified as disgust. We want to focus on disgust, but the calm was used, so disgust was incorrectly identified. So these are these quadrants, and just moving out through these. But yeah, so yeah, calm was a good result. If we were to say that calm was a duress emotion, and then we could either add it, so we move this line over here, or we could change it with a different emotion, then obviously the result would be better, and then the lines would be drawn different. The calm, for example, surprise would just swap there. Yeah, so the ethical problem is really which are duress emotions, which are the emotions. So we just happen to select these three, but if you say calm is one of them, the results would improve.
Thank you very much for your presentation. The next presentation is conducted by Jose Vicente Egas Lopez. It's that one. Did you manage to get it?
Yeah.
Oh, good, perfect. Then just copy it.
Someone speaking here?
We still got stuff there. That chair is
Oh, okay. Sure. Thanks.
Okay, so let me introduce you to the next presentation inside speech-based screening of multiple sclerosis by feature derived from self-supervised models. We have here with us Jose Vicente Egas Lopez.
Thank you. Yeah. Hey everyone, my name is Jose. I am a researcher at the University of Szeged in Hungary, along with Gabor Gostoyan. Couldn't come this time. So, as he said, I'm going to present the speech-based screening of multiple sclerosis based on features derived from self-supervised learning. So let's go through what's multiple sclerosis.
As many of you have heard already, it's a chronic inflammatory disease that primarily affects the central nervous system. It includes various symptoms like dysarthria or dysphonia in what respect to the speech. So here our focus are the symptoms that affect the speech of the patient. We got also word finding difficulties, the verbal fluency gets limited. They're prone to not be willing to communicate and those sort of things. There's 3 types of multiple sclerosis. The first one is relapsing remitting, where the patient symptoms, the severity of their symptoms varies over time. The second one is secondary progressive, which is the deterioration of the relapsing remitting state, so the previous state gets worse. And the last one is the primary progressive. And it's similar to the previous one, but without the presence of the first one. Here, what interests us, our data set was built upon the RRMS. So we got here, as most of you may know, in medical machine learning issues, we got limited data sets. Here was not the exception. We got just 1 hour and 41 minutes as our data set. This comprised 45 subjects, was pretty much balanced, the data. So for cross-validation, for that we needed to use cross-validation, a nested one. So we trained DNN models. So what I'm trying to say is that we did nested cross-validation, but we didn't train DNN models on them because that would have been counterproductive since the data set is so small. What we did in this case is using pre-trained models and also trained from scratch in another corpora similar to the subjects in question, to extract features from them. After feature extraction, we go through SVM normal machine learning classification. And this is widely used in adapted speaker verification methods such as I-vectors, X-vectors, or kappa TDNN, which is the current state of the art for speaker recognition. Yeah. So these are mostly used also in paralinguistics, the speaker recognition methods. So as I was saying, we fine-tuned, we trained a model for our baselines. It was X-vectors. We also used, So we trained the fine-tune, we trained the model, X-vector model, and we also used the WAP2VEC2 pre-trained models to have a comparison for our baselines works. Let's talk about a bit of WAP2VEC2, which is the current state of the art for speech recognition. So in WAP2VEC2 we have basically 2 blocks. We've got the blocks of convolutions, and then we got the transformer block. So what we get here is raw speech from so we get raw speech, we input to the encoder, which is the CNN block. Then it passes through a quantizer, and then the transformer takes this and performs modeling, masking training in order to classify speech units or learn speech units. This is for ASR. Our aim was using this type, trying this type of features for paralinguistic classification. Yeah, as I was saying, the data set was pretty much balanced with 23 multiple and sclerosis and 22 controls. The data set is Hungarian language. There was no significant variance and mean between the age, gender, and among age, gender, and education. And they were asked to. So the dataset comprises of the subjects narrating their previous day and narrating what they did on the past weekend. So it's a narrative recall task. So for the web-to-back approach, we structured two types of features. From the latest block from the convolutional part, we structured those, and we call convolutional embeddings. And then we also structured the contextual part, which is the transformer. So we ended up with 512 vector dimensions for the first one and 1024 dimensions for the hidden, for the latent features. As I said before, we used a Linux VM with a linear kernel with 22 nested cross-validation, which can be also a live-when-out cross-validation. As medical speech tasks or medical in general, we use the area under the curve measure. So what we tested? We tested 5 different kinds actually of pre-trained models from Web2Vec2. The first one was the base model. No, actually there are 7. Sorry. The first one was the base model. Then we got a bigger one, which is with 960 hours. Then we got the same one, but with more parameters, which is the Web2Vec2 large. Then we also used the cross-lingual models, which were trained on 53 languages. We used the same cross-lingual models on 53 but trained on 128 languages, and with different type of parameters, number of parameters. And we used also to match the language of the task. We used the fine-tuned in the cross-lingual fine-tuned in specifically in Hungarian. And for comparing it with X vectors, we used 2 types. We used 2 models. The pre-trained model, which is the one that was trained on speech was trained by Snyder et al., which contained tons of hours of speech. And we also fine-tuned our, here it says fine-tuned, that's not correct. What we did is train from scratch our X vector model, but we did not train with our dataset since it's really small. What we did is take a corpus which has the same language as the task in question. We used also MFCC. What we used here in X vectors are MFCCs, filter banks, and spectrograms. So the results here for the Web2Vec2 models, we can see that the values range is pretty much decent, although not outstanding. And we used a type of aggregation because the model outputs. So to get the utterance level information, what we did is to take the mean and the standard take the mean and the standard deviation, these two options, over the time axis. So that's how we got the Deuter's level information. And here we got the better scores with the later one. And the cross-lingual models helped more, with the 1 billion parameter model being the best one. Here we can see that seems like more parameters, better the scores. And for the fine-tuned models, we got also good results with the Hungarian, but with the similar ones like Finnish or German, where the phonetics are similar, we didn't really got the results. With Spanish, which is really different, the phonetics, we got the worse results. And surprisingly, we got better results with the X vectors, with being the MFCCs, the standards for X vectors, that was the best case. So, and also with the pre-trained model also showed good results in this case. Seems like the amounts of data count more in this case. So yeah, so for summarizing, we trained models from scratch for X vectors and extracted the features, and from WAP2VEC2 also for being able to classify multiple sclerosis from the speech. It seems like the cross-lingual fine-tuning is not really worth it, because we got the same or almost similar results for their non-fine-tuned counterparts. And fine-tuning a smart model turned out to be useful when you train on the material that matches the corpus. Yeah, and to finalize, as we saw, X vectors outperformed WAP2VEC approaches, with the difference that is X vectors have a really simpler pipeline structure, and they have 10 million parameters, and the WAP2VEC2 that was similar in performance was with 1 billion parameters. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from the audience? Okay, I have one question. Do you think that you will get better results if, for example, you will also do any pre-training with English phrases?
On what? On which?
You said that you trained the model with Hungarian.
Actually, this is what is. We got better results. This is the one that was pre-trained on English, but it's a already pre-trained model. So if that's what you mean, it's already better here because of the size of the data.
Thank you very much. Good.
Thank you.
That's it. Thank you very much. So, let me now introduce the next presenter, Javier Sonet. An automated system for detecting and preventing phishing attempts on Steam accounts. Do we have him with us? Oh, yes. Oh, sorry, I didn't see you. Yeah.
Good morning. My name is Kabir Sunny, and I'm going to present the detection and prevention of phishing attempts related to Steam accounts, which was actually my honors thesis, which I completed last year with the help of Stones. Before we get into the research of it, what is Steam? Steam is a digital distribution platform which combines the functions of a digital storefront for video games with a more community-focused platform for users. Boasts at last count around 120 million active users per month, with I believe a peak concurrent count of about 28 million. The Steam account of the users hold both their library of games as well as an inventory of in-game items that can be earned through playing the games. As part of the community platform, Steam offers a marketplace for users to sell and trade the items that they own. Because of this, Steam accounts can become quite valuable, with items ranging from a few cents to a few $1,000s. And that leads to situations like this, where in June of last year, a Saudi Arabian prince had his Steam account hacked and lost over $2 million worth of items. This has happened in multiple cases, with victims being professional esports players as well. And it is important to note that in every instance, the company behind Steam, Valve, has stepped in and sorted everything out. This leads us to phishing, which can be classified as both a technological and psychological attack. Phishing preys on the lack of attention of the victim and manipulates their trust into giving up sensitive information. Because phishing attacks the victim directly, it can often circumvent many security systems. In a study done by Kaspi a few years ago, they found that users don't really make it easy for themselves. Almost half of users in a given social media will use their real name, their real photo. Most of them don't read the terms and conditions, though I believe that number might be a little bit underestimating them. And over 40% of them don't bother changing their login details regularly. All of this makes it very easy for scammers and hackers to obtain their details. This leads us to the core problem of people will always be the weakest link in a security system. Security systems evolve, they become more advanced over time, but people sadly stay the same. How does this relate to Steam? Well, as we saw, Steam accounts can become extremely valuable, which attract a lot of unwanted attention. So that leads us to the question of this presentation. Can we produce a system that not only prevents phishing attacks, but does so with as little human action as possible? Here is a rough overview of the system that we've built. Firstly, we will look at monitoring the browsing data of the user, as we're focusing on mostly web-based attacks. So the first part, extracting the site certificate and checking the validity. I believe most browsers do this for you anyway. Extracting the necessary data is where this system comes in. We will extract the data and feed it into a machine learning model to analyze and predict whether or not the given website is a phishing attack or not. Several models were analyzed as part of the study. We decided to go with the model done by Sangos et al., mostly for its high accuracy, but also it was the most accessible paper. The model itself made use of several other models. It decided on K nearest neighbors as it had the highest average accuracy during our testing. The database was made up of around 70,000 URLs, split equally between legitimate and phishing URLs. The data was pre-processed, pulling out several features such as URL length, subdomain length, etc., etc. Special note must be made of Alexa rank, which had to be removed as it referenced a website that no longer existed. The website monitored different web traffic for well, websites. Sadly, it was shut down a few years ago. I do have a quick system demo if I can figure out how to do that. Just a short video.
Do you have the video?
I do.
Okay, great.
So we have the user starting the model, the web proxy. See just an accuracy of 81%. We then have to activate the proxy server on Windows. You can see it's just routing through localhost. And now we can start browsing. So this is the official Steam webpage, which loads quite well. And we can see the requests coming in through the proxy. Everything is being checked. Everything is being returned quite nicely. Just showing you that everything works. My university login page, everything loads here quite well as well. YouTube does take some time to load, but it does eventually. This may have been my internet connection being quite dodgy at the time. Yeah, it's not loading, but slow internet, what can you do? Interestingly enough, everything loads here quite well, except for the adverbs, which is a nice side effect, but not ideal. And then things go slightly south, where Stack Overflow is unfortunately blocked, which is quite an issue. I have a list of Steam phishing URLs just to make sure that it is actually working as intended. There we go, blocked. And you can see it has been added to a blacklist. So next time it won't need to run the model just to check the same URL. So the results of the system. We chose metrics in such a way that allows us to stick to the goals of the project, which was to have as little human action as possible. As you can see, or as you could have seen from the video, the user was unfortunately required to start the system initially. Some minor action required. The impact on device resources. We tested this across a bunch of different websites, measuring the CPU load and number of threads used. There is a general connection between the complexity of the website and the number of threads used, with some exceptions from Stack Overflow, which, as you saw, failed to load. Mega.nz, which is a cloud storage platform, also failed to load, resulting in very low thread count. We also measured the system performance, so the performance of the model itself. The time taken to initialize the model, this would be training the machine learning model itself with a pre-extracted CSV of the dataset. It took less than a second. However, with a raw dataset, times were reaching around 2 minutes. We also measured the time taken to load each website, and with and without the model running, there is a noticeable difference. Of course, again, with the exception of Mega and Stack Overflow, which both failed to load. So it's fair to say there were some limitations to this system. It's quite primitive. My knowledge at the time was sadly quite limited. It also has to be started on every reboot of the machine. And well, using the raw data set has quite a large overhead. Future optimizations, improving the pre-processing, potentially adding some more features to be extracted, doing some better natural language processing on the data itself, perhaps even improving the web proxy, and also far beyond the scope of my knowledge at the time would be to integrate directly with the Steam platform, which would allow for a server-side hosting of the model, making things quite a bit quicker for the user. But it will also allow for a user feedback system where the users can maybe correct some of the false positives and negatives that the system puts out. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions? Yeah, please.
Hey, very nice talk, cool concept. Does it doesn't seem like it needs to be tied to Steam at all, right? It seems much more general than that. I don't understand what the connection to Steam is. Why just make it broad? Why not make it broader?
Steam was the initial focus of my research. The sort of broader reach of the system was more of an unintended side effect. Narrowing things down to Steam itself was proving quite difficult.
Did you, I have another thing. Did you try using it with other platforms, so not only Steam, and see if it's working? Or is it just tied to?
It's, unfortunately, it just works on everything.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, fortunately, unfortunately.
Yeah. Good. Congratulations. Any other questions? Good. Then I would like to present you with a certificate of participation. Then I would like to introduce the next presentation. We have Nazmi Martinawi, I hope that I pronounced it correctly.
That's correct.
Experimental analysis of a sensitive plate for grain loss monitoring system.
Okay, may I start?
Yes.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for your time. I know this is a lunchtime, so now we're going to talk about food. This is a bit off from the topic of this session, but okay, this is experimental analysis of sensitive plate for grain loss monitoring system, which is specifically designed for rice. Yeah? Because in Malaysia we have rice, so the issue with rice is there are many grain loss during harvesting. So we have to quantify how much loss and how to improve the system, how to notify the driver to drive combine harvester so that the loss can be under control. Okay. So grain harvesting is critical operation because it will determine how much we can harvest, and it will have an impact on the yield, quality, and the cost. And grain loss, consumer and monitoring in combined harvester is very important. But it is time consuming if we do it manually. You know, you see this photo where we measure manually, we put the canvas and it's figures. Okay? So we need to go for a sensing system. So minimizing grain loss from combined harvester remains a major challenge in Malaysia and in any Southeast country. Okay? So a sensor-based monitoring system using a sensitive plate could be developed, and it has been developed by my team. And the structure, design, and material of the sensitive plate will affect sensor signal and acquisition of the recognition, because the grain of rice is very small, very light. It's about 0.05 gram in average. So the plate must be very sensitive, but it can distinguish between grain and foreign materials. Okay? So the first order, natural frequency and damping ratio of a plate affect the overall sensitivity of the sensor. This is what we observe. Thus, it is essential to determine the effect of the sensitive plate thickness, okay, in size and size in terms of its behavior, dynamic behavior such as natural frequency, damping ratio, and a model shape. So in this study, what we did, experimental model analysis was conducted using an scope analysis software to investigate the effect of dynamic behavior of 4 stainless steel plates at different thickness. Okay? So the objective of the study was to determine the optimal plate thickness that can tolerate the rough harvesting condition of the combined harvester, especially vibration and dust, while minimizing vibration and noise to maintain the accuracy of the sensors that can be used to monitor grain losses from the machine. So this is the machine that we use in Malaysia at the moment. So this is the description of instrument that we use. The length and the width of the sensor is there, but we tried at 4 different thicknesses using aluminium. And this is all the material properties, and then this is all the equipment that we use: piezoelectric accelerator, impact hammer, national instrument, and also model analysis software. So how we did is the first one, the material for the grain impact plate, we call it sensitive plate, must possess specific hardness, okay, to resist fatigue deformation as well as sufficient toughness to prevent brittle fracture. Okay, brittle fracture, and withstand external vibration originating from a combined harvester. So a stainless steel plate, the category of it is 304, was selected as the optimal material for the sensitive plate given its superior properties compared to other steel materials. So the shape of the sensitive plate was determined based on the size and configuration of the separation and cleaning outlet of the combined harvester. So we measured inside the combined harvester, then we come out with a proper cutting where the sensitive plate will be installed. So this is a picture of that aluminium that we use, stainless steel. So the length and width of the plate are 250 millimeter and 150 millimeter width and length and width. And this is to ensure the plate is designed to fit within the precise dimension and shape of the combined harvester and to be installed at the back of combined harvester. This is all the equipment that we use. The experiment was conducted in a dynamic and vibrational laboratory without excessive noise or vibration, which is under control. So before starting the experiment, 78 measurement points were identified on the 4 stainless steel plate with different thickness. So all the dots were measured. So the first picture is about sample plate with a measurement point, and the plate were placed on a rigid platform to prevent unwanted vibration and movement during the experiment. And a roving hammer method, this is hammer, was used in the experiment using a precision hammer as the input device and a sensor as the output. So the impact hammer was set up for 3 impacts per measurement point. So for every point, we took three measurements. And this is the flow, the measurement flow of this experiment. So the data was collected to set up the device to the experiment. The output tables of the piezoelectric accelerometer and impact hammer were connected to the input of the national instrument data acquisition device, and the output of that national instrument data was connected to the USB and then connected to the computer. Okay? So the sensitivity of the sensor has been set to 2.25 millivolts per U. So signal processing technique, we applied filtering, averaging, and windrowing were applied to each hammer impact to improve the quality of the data acquired. So the window type was set to this is all the method, and then the number of sample as well as the sample span was set to 1024 to get better coherence for the plate impact experiment. Okay, so this is all the formula we use. We put Icecet software, and then the Icecet analysis software was launched on the PC after connecting the device to ensure the setup was connected successfully, and then the data collected is reliable, okay, is accurate. So the recorded sensor signal were imported into the model analysis software for the model analysis algorithm and extraction of model parameters from the measured sensor data. So how did we analyze the model? We used a model analysis software where the sensor data obtained from this experiment was analyzed using polynomial fitting analysis, in origin statistic analysis. software and both plots obtained from Icecet software. So a plate thickness with the narrowest bandwidth or maximum phase response is suitable for this application because the higher the phase response of the plate, the lower vibrational frequency outside the bandwidth. So this is the result of our experiment. It shows only the first 10 experiments and it was very long. So the first 10 natural frequencies and damping ratio obtained from these 4 plates, plate 1, plate 2, plate 3, plate 4, and this is the data. And then this is the result of the polynomial model fitting of the 4 stainless steel plate thickness. So all the data is there, and there is the polynomial equation. We have BI, B2, residual, etc. So this is all what we obtained from the software. So the fitting analysis, polynomial model, equation shown in the table indicates how the model describes the performance of the plate natural frequency and damping ratio in the experimental model analysis. So a higher Y value indicate better performance, while a lower Y value indicates poor performance. And to choose the ideal plate thickness for the green loss control system, a plate with greater natural frequency and damping ratio is required, and this is used for this experiment. So as a result, according to the result, we found that the R-square value for the natural frequency were excellent, 0.98 to 0.09 respectively, and we found that a thickness at 1.5 is better, having the highest accuracy value. So in terms of residual sum of square, plate 1.5 mm has the lowest, which shows better performance compared to other thickness, and the F value of the plate 1.5 mm was greater than other. So all the results indicate that 1.5 mm thickness is the best option for this project. So it can be seen from this finding, 1.5 mm plate thickness perform better in the model analysis in terms of the natural frequency than the other plate thickness. Okay. So the R-square value for the damping ratio of the 4 plate thickness were 0.9, ranging from 0.9 to 0.08. So this is the board plot showing the frequency response of the plate thickness. This is for the first thickness, 1.0 millimeter. This is for 1.5 millimeter thickness. This is for 2.0 millimeter, and this is for 2.5 millimeters. So again, this is the frequency performance response of the 4 plate thickness according to the board plots. So we can see that different plot, different thickness have different characteristic, but we found that plate with 1.5 millimeter thickness has a very narrow bandwidth, and it has very excellent result for this experiment. So as a conclusion, I will read only this one. According to this study, the 1.5 millimeter stainless steel plate thickness was chosen due to its higher performance when compared to other plate thickness. So this is what we are carrying on at the moment to produce the sensor. Okay, so thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Any questions from the audience? Okay, thank you. I would like to present to you the participation certificate. And now, so all of the ones that have presented into this session, just do a photo over here quickly. And then I invite you all, because the organizers are taking some photos outside for the entire conference. Do we have the... No, we don't have the... Take the photo. Okay. Do you want to take it with mine, and I will send you the... Take the photo with, and I will send you via WhatsApp. No, sorry, I didn't see him. Sorry. So, please step forward.